Welcome to Health Butts and Guts, on the forefront of intestinal health and nutrition. Tune in with Mel and Kev for enlightening tales of coffee enemas, perennial bleaching, and holistic teachings. Lovely.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
To the London Method.
I'm so excited.
And our little veteran here, welcome.
Thank you.
Come into the space. This is where all the magic happens that Kelly knows about, but you are new to.
Yeah.
So-
Nervous, but I'm excited.
That's good. That's perfect. So this technique is really about whittling your waist, lengthening your leg muscles, lengthening and strengthening, and then like shaping your backside. Those are the three main things that it does. So
That's perfect. That's my areas I like to work on. Anyways. I hate doing arms because I just feel like they're going to make me like buff.
yeah, well, I mean, arms are a part of it, but if you ever look at it's based from ballet, physical therapy, and so if you look at dancers and their arms, really, there's nothing that they do besides holding them up. So there's a lot of that involved in the work, but there's no weights.
Well, I think Mel, I'll speak for you, but I feel like I have the same trauma of we were swimmers in high school and water polo. So like the female back was really big and just, so that's why I love the London Method, because it's like so dainty and like you're strong, but you're feminine looking.
Yeah, like the soft. It's okay to be like worked out. But soft.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a fear.
That's exactly what it does. It's that svelte look. So you're going to see the muscles, like the toning of them, but it's in this way where it's very feminine in the sense that your muscles aren't going to be like bulging out, but you're so strong and toned. So it's the model like leg look versus the muscular leg look.
Okay.
That's the best way that's the biggest change.
I'll take it. So my legs are going to look like Kel's legs. Perfect.
This is what happens when you tail up.
Right.
But so I'll show you one right now that we can just do so that you can get kind of a feel for it.
Okay.
And then we can talk about it a little bit more. So on this one, I'll show you one of the thigh lengthening exercises that we do, and everything that we do is about strengthening your core. So no matter if we're working your legs, your backside, whatever, your core is always going to be engaged. Okay. So you always have a stable surface. We have a bar just because that's what it's about, but you can use anything. So you're going to place your inside hand on it. Perfect.
Okay.
And then your outside leg. So I'll give you like a little side view so you can watch me, but you can just face. Yeah. Perfect. That's all. I'll do it. I love it. So yeah, I'll do it too. So your outside leg will step out. And then you just always want to have your shoulders relaxed down. I always say your shoulders never become your earrings, so just relax them down. Draw your belly in, and then you're going to let your leg, keep the standing leg straight, push that heel into the floor, and then just let your standing leg just float up. And I'll go in the middle so you guys can go, perfect. Okay, so your thigh is just straight out in front of your hip, and you want to feel
be cramping.
You should be feeling it. In fact, when you feel it like that, try not to let your shoulders fall back, so you're going to keep them forward. And then one of the moves we do is just to take the leg, let it bend a tiny bit. So you just relax behind the knee and then you're just going to stretch and bend it like that. Keep your toe pointed and you just stretch.
Oh, it's cramping.
Yeah, it's already hard. Huh?
I think as I did Pilates last week and I maybe didn't stretch enough. Okay,
so but that's really, and if it ever feels like too much, draw your belly in and actually curl your tailbone under, which is what we call our tilt. So you're going to tilt under and then just bend, stretch like that. And really what you're doing is you're lengthening these thigh muscles out and you just want to keep your shoulders over your hips. Even if your leg goes lower, that's actually better because when you fall back, so you just want to keep it up and just
I could do it.
Bend, stretch.
It's so hard. I'm telling you, in the beginning of the workout, I'm doing just this. I'm like,
even bend less. So it's just like a little bend, stretch, pulse, bend, reach. Yes, we love to pulse, bend, stretch.
Okay,
that's it.
I can use this leg.
We do both sides, Mel, so you can definitely use either side. But so just bend, stretch.
Like right there, right?
Yes, no, it's exactly right. So what she is feeling is really what the technique does. So it's all about lengthening your muscles out. So what I like to say is sometimes it can feel like little knots in your thigh are actually being pulled apart. And it tends to be doing that. Like if you're really strong, actually, your muscles are really strong. A lot of people come in here and they're very strong. And when you start to like lengthen that muscle out, that's what it actually shapes it. So it'll start to lean out like that. But when you do it, you actually feel the muscles like
like the fibers like breaking out.
So that would be like the cramping of what, like so quickly
intense,
she's already feeling it.
Oh yeah, because it's intense in here. And also we always do a proper warm up, and I know we didn't warm you up, but in the sense when you stretch your leg out, these muscles are lengthening. And Lotte Berk, who you will learn, was the creator of this work, and she believed that a fully stretched leg, if you do not fully stretch your leg, you're cheating yourself. So the ultimate goal is to try and stretch the leg as straight as you can get it, because a lot of people will not be able to at first. And as you do it, you're just like a little more. And then those muscles are like, do.
Yeah, and just slowly built it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And it's tiny. Like it's like a barely bend stretch and reach. And the shoulders stay like over the hips. Yes. It's all about posture as well. So if you love Pilates, it's a postural work.
That's what I love. It's feminine. It's beautiful. It's just, you're so strong, but you're like, how is doing this so hard?
Yeah. And that move there, we do it in different variations where you're maybe lifting, you're stretching. And like you'll do a minute and a half on one side, and then we'll do a minute and a half on the other.
Like full straight, or is there like pauses?
No, full straight, but it'll feel like 10 minutes probably. But we play music and we get you through it. We don't tell jokes, but we try and make it as fun as possible, because like the originator of this said, if you don't make it fun for them, why would anyone ever come back? The moves are torturous.
Yeah.
It's from England. So
yeah. Will you tell us, like, you want to take a break real quick? All right, so let's just chat about it.
Let's just chat. We'll have a little chat about it, and then we can try a little more. So we'll give your thighs a little break. But yeah, so
this is Kelly.
Hi.
And Kelly, she is not only the owner of the London Method, but she is a wifey. She is a mom of twins, and your daughter too.
I'm a daughter. Yes.
Yeah.
A daughter, a mother, a wife, and a business owner. So yeah, this is a really huge passion project for me. The London Method. This technique actually came from England, which is why it is called the London Method, and it is based from the work of Lotte Berk. So have you done Barre before?
Okay, I did it one time. And when I did it, I was really excited because I'd never done it before, obviously, but I hadn't done Pilates yet. I had just done yoga and then obviously like working out. And I don't know why I was so uncomfortable when I was doing it, because all I remember is like standing in a room of women and I'm at a bar and I'm just like doing like these like Kegel thrusts like the whole time. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't think I was getting a workout when I was in there. I was like, I didn't even sweat, because that's what I always like connected working out with, is like your heart rate and sweating. But then like the next day I could not move. Mm-hmm. I had like I was so sore in muscles I had never knew that existed, but then I never went back to it.
It's my favorite thing to tell people that are like new in the class. I'm like, just wait till you try and take a dump tomorrow. Like, just wait. Like, it's my favorite thing, because I'm like, seriously, you try to use the restroom and your legs are like shaking. I didn't even know I had those small muscles.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, it is. It works your stabilizers, and it is small, very small controlled movements. So a lot of times it can definitely not feel like at the time, although I know what you just did, you could tell that things were working, you know?
Yeah.
But I do have to say that the reason why the London Method was created was because I come from a Pilates background. So I was a Pilates instructor. And then one of my Pilates clients actually told me about Barre. So I started taking what I now call Americanized Barre classes. Fell in love with it to music. And it was just, the moves were a little different than Pilates, but I loved it. And so that kind of began my journey of Barre. Mm-hmm. So Barre actually was the name that this technique was changed to, but it came from a woman named Lotte Berk. And so Lotte Berk was from England, which is why we ended up calling it the London Method, was because in 2015, I read a book that Lotte Berk, who's the creator of Barre, her daughter had written. Her daughter's name is Esther Fairfax, and she wrote a book more about their relationship, not so much about like the exercises. But I read this book, and it was all about this woman Lotte and her daughter, and from the perspective of the daughter, and it was just kind of this tumultuous relationship. It wasn't even really about exercise, but when I started researching after reading this story, it's actually an incredible book called My Improper Mother and Me, and it's a book that you will not be able to put down from all the stuff that these two women sort of went through together. But when I read it, I was like, I am so intrigued by her. So I started to look up some of the original Lotte Berk work. And then I found out that her daughter Esther was 81 years old at the time that I found her. And she was still teaching in England. She was teaching her mom's classes. And I thought, this lady was not even good to her daughter. Like they had not a good relationship, but she's still teaching her work at 81. So immediately I was even more intrigued. And so I reached out to her, like wrote her an email. I wrote an email to her website, and her son now, who is so close to me after all these years. But when I first wrote to him, he said, I'm reading her your emails and she wants to talk to you. She loves how intrigued you are with the original work. So he gave me her phone number, and I was like, okay, I am getting Lotte Berk's daughter's phone number. I'm supposed to call her. It was kind of one of those like moments where it was surreal almost, you know? So when I called her, we had this conversation. It was like two 16-year-old girls talking on the phone. I could not tell that she was 81. And we just started talking about it, started asking her questions like, why are there no weights? Because there was no weights in the stuff I saw. Like, why is the abdominal work so much more difficult than the stuff that I've seen? Like, what is this leg stretching? Like, it was just different. I could feel it different just from the little stuff that I could find online. Mm-hmm. And her Lottie's daughter Esther told me the whole story, just like how immediately from day one, her mom had signed the rights to her name away, and they had brought it to America. And her mom never really knew what was brought here. Her name was brought, and the technique that was brought over, which now we more know as Barre, was just very different. The warm-up changed, the exercises changed, some subtly, some drastically, but the work was just different. So then that now everyone follows like the more Americanized version, but no one really knew that the other version was living in England with this woman's daughter. So on a whim, she offered to train me, said that was the only way I was going to find out what it was. And so a lot of people couldn't believe it, but I did as a mom. I picked up, I told my husband at the time, I'm like, I think if I don't go learn what this woman has to say, like I'm going to regret it. And so he was like, I guess you're going to England. And so I went, and then
amazing.
Yeah, I went. He flew over later with my mom, who is obsessed with the technique now and the strongest, most fit I've ever seen in her life. She does this 5 days a week and is completely obsessed. But she came over with my husband because our kids were only 4 at the time. We have 4-year-old twins. So they all came over. I trained with Esther Fairfax, and in just 3 weeks of training with her, my waist pulled in 1.5 inches. Like I measured myself before I went, just because I was just like, I don't know what's going to happen there. Yeah. And this pulling in effect is what it does for you. Like we've showed you the thigh stuff, and I'll show you some waist stuff too. Mm-hmm. But there's this pulling in that happens with the original work. And what Lottie's thoughts behind it was that she was a ballerina who had a back injury, and she learned some back healing exercises, and she wanted to keep her ballerina shape. She was in a lot of pain. And so she intuitively created this technique to actually heal her own body, to fix her body as far as the pain, but also keep her ballerina shape. That's why when Kelly says like you get this very feminine but strong look, that's really what it was based off of. And she really figured out how to get your body in some sort of strange positions that you may not have ever thought to get in, but you'll feel like you get to like the underside of your muscles, which is the part that like pulls you in.
Right. It makes me imagine like a bodies.
Yeah.
How do you say it?
Corset.
Yeah. Yeah, but what's the other word?
Like bondage?
No. Okay, a corset. And how like when they pull all the strings, and then it just like
that's exactly what she
well, that's what you right when you said like in and out.
That's her quote. Is actually Lotte Berk is famous for saying like we have a corset. It's called our core. So your core, the muscles are in the front, on the sides, and the back, and they attach at our spine. So it's like if she figured out that if you pulled it in and around from every part, from the front, side to the back, which is how we work you. We don't just work, you work them all in the weirdest ways. Honestly, I'm going to say it's weird. At first you're like, wait, what do we do? But you will feel that area start to smooth out. You'll feel it pull in, because she believed that our middle was like a corset, and it is designed to hold our organs in, to keep us upright. Mm-hmm. So if we don't work them, then everything just starts to fall away. Like your organs aren't being held in properly. Right. You're not able to stand up. And all I can say is that when I went to England, and this 81-year-old lady got up and down on the floor, and I was trained by her. Like, she trained me, and I was just immediately like, whatever you are doing, I want to do. Because a lot of the moves as a Pilates instructor and a bar instructor, an Americanized bar instructor, I couldn't do a lot of the stuff that she was doing at 81 years old. So I actually had to condition, because it really is a conditioning class that uses the bar for like leverage and support. That's what I like to say, because you condition your body. And I was able to do the things that she could do. But when I first like touched down in England, I was like, wait, what? How are you lifting your legs off the floor and stretching like that, like from the ground? Like, I couldn't even believe it. This little lady was doing these
I think that even when I come to your classes now, like your mom, like I'm like, how is she so cute? But you're freaking like 60 something years old, 70 years old, and you can do like these clappy things on the floor. And I'm like, when you're dying, and they're all proper and cute. I'm like, I want to do what you're doing to be there at that age. Like, that's incredible.
Go to England and see, that's a whole room full of them. All these ladies will just like school you, and they're like in their 70s. And one lady, Moira, she's in her 80s, and she's like got her leg up the highest, and I'm just like, Moira, and like a doctor had told this one woman in England that she needed to have hip surgery, and she found Esther and started doing work with her, and all her ailments like went away. That's what happened to so many of our clients as well, is like people will be told they need surgery or got to go to chiropractor, and they'll start doing this, and all of a sudden their doctors will be like, what are you doing? It's like, it's the most like healing work I think I've ever seen, besides the fact that you do get a smaller waist and your legs do get longer. Besides the physical look, like the feel is really what sold me on it with the clients. Because like Kelly was saying, I'm a mom, and I had twins, and I had something called diastasis recti. Have you heard of that?
So a lot of our listeners have babies. So can you explain to her the muscle situation that happened to you?
Yeah, I think it's called diastasis recti, the one that happened to me. But it's very common. I was a Pilates instructor, and I had twins. So basically, how the abdominals work is, we talked about how they attach on your spine in the back, but in the front, you have your two abdominals here, and then there's a little sheath called the linea alba that holds them together. And so it's meant to stretch for when we have children. It's meant to stretch as the abdominals go out. However, if it goes too far out and pushes too far out, then when it comes back, it's almost like a rubber band that it loses its elasticity. That word's always hard for me, but it doesn't come all the way back together. So your abdominals will just sit there and not pull back, right? So
is that how like some women, when they have kids, like they have like a little bit of like a tummy because it's like stretched and it's not tight?
Exactly, because it won't pull back in because there's nothing, it's
just overstretched.
It's overstretched. So it's like they'll just sit there, and sometimes you'll see them push out through the middle. Like you can see when they're separated, there's a little test you can do on people when they go on their back and they lift up, and you can see what the separation is, right? So I had that, and I was a Pilates instructor. I'm pre and postnatal certified, and I had done like all my Pilates exercises to try and bring them as close back together as I could. But until I went to England and worked with Esther Fairfax, there was one part of this technique that didn't make it over to, there's a lot that didn't make it over to America, but the one I could not believe the most was, it's called feet under the bar. And you actually slide your feet under the bar, and you do what I've now named as waist whittling. So she teaches you how to do these little waist moves that are really just spinal rotations that we have in Pilates, but you do them like on the ground with your feet underneath the bar. So stabilizing and then moving. It was like I was all of a sudden able to do the stuff again once I started doing these regularly. So I like really feel they're magical. Kelly knows feet under the bar. It's like you do feel like you're working deeper than you ever have before. And everything's like stationary. So you're just like, I like to say, you're just like, yeah.
Well, it's funny because too, when she says that, like I can visualize, like you'll see it, but like your muscles kind of get tucked in. Like you are taking that corset and bringing it in, and then you're working out the muscles. Do it.
And that's exactly, that visual is exactly what's happening. And so it will get you the strongest core that you've ever had, because there's really nothing like it in my opinion as far as like how deep you can work and how strong you can get. So I will show you. So if you don't have a bar, you can always do these with just your feet up on the wall, but you're going to actually slide your feet underneath this bar here.
Okay.
Because this is really, it's so intense.
Do I have to get closer?
Yeah, you want your knees to just have a tiny bend behind them. Just a tiny bend. Perfect. All right. So this is the position. You want to have your knees just a tiny bit bent. Your feet are just gently pulling back on the bar. And if you don't have a bar, you can just put your feet on the wall. However, stabilizing the bottom half is really important. So sometimes if you don't have a bar, you can use like a ball between your knees. Because the main thing is you're going to want to keep your waist, your hips really still as you move your waist, okay? So just think about hip stabilization, pelvic stabilization is what this is all about. You're going to draw your belly in, and then you're going to go into a tilt position, which the tilt in here is just the same as a Pilates tilt. So if you're a Pilates girl, you're just going to draw your abdominals in, and you're going to curl your tailbone like it feels like your tailbone's going to curl up, but don't squeeze your butt. So a lot of people will squeeze their butt naturally. In this, you just want to draw your abdominals in, so your core is what's working, but you're just perfect. Good. Okay. Now, you're going to lift up. We're going to lift up to our lift and grip position. And so you're going to lift your chin up over your chest, and I want you to grab onto the back side of your legs. And then just to keep your neck safe and happy, once you get up here, just draw your ribs in and down. So draw your belly in and down with your tilt. And you're going to take your hands, and you're just going to place them right behind your head. So you can just interlace them behind your head, and then just open your elbows out a little bit wider. Perfect. Now, from here, this is the position. So you can do forward moves here, which would just mean you're going to lift your chin up over your chest and you're going to fold over, we call it. Now, when you fold over, it's tiny. It's exactly right. It's tiny. But as you lift up, your belly is pulling in and down and your low back's pushing into the floor, and you lift and then you just lower. So these are just for
that?
Yeah, just like that. And every time you lift in, you want to pull your belly in, right? And then you're going to lift up, and here's the whittling part. So that's more for the front of the abdominals, right? Okay. Now she's like, I want to come down.
So that's six-pack abs right there? Is that
the top? Yes, that's the front of them, right? And now we're going to go to the sides. So when you go to the sides, you're going to stay lifted. And anytime your head, this is a tip for everyone, let your head relax in your hands, but then let your hands push your head back up. That will make your head just like rest in your hands rather than any strain. Okay. So do that. And then in this position, keeping your tilt, keeping your belly pulled in, you're just going to twist to the right, and then you're going to twist to the left. Now, when you do these, I'm just going to hold you here so you can feel this, and my hands might be cold. So lift up here. Now twist to the right and then to the left. Don't think about moving so much with the arms. Think about whittling your weight. There you go. Your waist. So there you go. So you're pulling in. Yeah. And then you're trying you're trying to keep your hips from moving as you just less elbow moves and just more waist. Make it smaller. That is it right there. So yeah, so your elbows want to come forward, but you're just keeping them there, and you're just almost like you're in a cast with your upper body, and you're just. Oh my god, it burnt.
Yay! So did you feel that?
Yeah, I feel it here, but now I just like, what do I do here?
You mean here?
So there's like, you get sore here. Mm-hmm. Here, and I just want to be sore there.
So come to class, because this is one section, and then we do basically the first half of the class is more your legs and then your backside, and the second half of your class is going to be all your core work. So this is one example of what we do for the sides of the waist. Then we do center floor work where it's more low belly. Like this will hit your abs, your core, I like to say, because our abs are actually our back. It's everything in every angle possible. So yeah.
How do you feel?
Good. Tight, sore, burning.
So those particular ones are just going to be more for the sides of the waist, and they give us that pulling in effect. And then we have other ones that are more for the back side of the waist, and that was one of the first things I noticed on my post baby body was that there was a smoothing that happened. So the smoothing sensation, the smoothing happens in the back side of your waist. Yeah. And we have moves that are meant to just highlight or target that area. Really, it works your whole body again, because everything in the class works your whole body, but it's going to get that area. And we do something that's called Hello Sailor. Do you want to try that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Hello Sailor is going to be, you're going to just follow. Yeah. Maybe.
I'll try it with you too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So your front knee is just going to be bent in front of you here, and then this back leg. We have to have a little more room, and I'll show you guys what you want to look at, because you want to be able to, remember how we talked about in the beginning of class, the beginning when we did this, that leg you don't want it to be too bent. So I want you to almost stretch it to straight. So there's just like a tiny bend behind your knee. Yes. And then this leg, yeah, right? This is perfect. Now, that's exactly right. What you want to do is you want to actually take this hip, and this is the Hello Sailor part. So this knee is just bent in front. This leg, make sure the knee's either in line with your hip or even inch it behind a little bit, depending on how stretchy your hip flexor is. And then you're going to take this hip, this is the Hello Sailor part, push it forward like that. So it's a provocative hip push forward. And then this hand is going to come behind your head.
Oh, geez.
Hello.
Right? So hi. So already what she did is perfect. You're like the perfect little model because her thigh, she was like, oh, I'm feeling it exactly. And then you want to feel the back side of your waist right here, right? So when your hip pushes forward and this hand goes up and you stretch this elbow back, so pull this elbow back a little bit, all we're going to do is you're going to take this leg and you're just going to rotate your thigh like that in your hip socket. Jeez. So super tiny. So hard, right? But again, conditioning class. So at first people are like, wait, what am I doing? But all you have to do is just start to do this tiny little movement where your thigh.
I know I'm an uncoordinated person, but this is just beyond.
It's so.
Isn't it crazy because it's the smallest
it's so
movement?
Crazy. Yeah. But it also is because we're not used to like working our muscles in this way. So a lot of times you're like, wait, you want me to do what? So if this is too much up for proper Hello Sailor, you can put your hands down. But the main thing is you want to lift your chest. So lift your chest, perfect. And then you can just do your little rotations with your hands on the ground until you can work up. To,
I saw your muscle.
You did?
Yeah, I went like fat.
And then
it was a muscle.
This is very common too, trying to move from the foot and the shin. It's actually the thigh just rotating in the hip socket, and then just pretend like your whole leg is in a cast and you're just rotating, not your shoulders. Keep those still, just your thigh. And just that. See that little tiny bit? We'll get in there. And I know it feels
it's like the small.
What is this?
That is the area. No, and who thinks to get your body in this position to work that area? So one of the things, like we have moves that the girls named Muffin No More, because that area is just totally it works the same on everyone. And just like all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, there's all of a sudden nothing back there anymore. So it's like it strengthens and pulls you in so that backside of your waist just smooths out. I mean, it's these little intricate details that she thought of, like when she did the moves that were just like getting into the body in such a different way, you know, that no one else, like I've never seen any of this work happening in the way that it does.
I think for me, when I try to envision doing a workout or an exercise or something, to me it's like, okay, visualize it, and it's more that movement versus it seems like this and Pilates are similar with like the smaller, tighter movements, and you don't have to be like obnoxious with the move or dramatic. It is really like that small little thing.
It's annoying to me because I'm like, you mean to tell me this? And then I'm okay. You know what I mean? Because it's people think that you have to be like pumping iron every single day.
No, you don't. You just do these little tiny things. And the best way that I can describe the work of Lotte Berk, which is really what we do here, because that was what I found. I feel like I discovered this, this secret in the countryside of England when I found Esther Fairfax, was because this work was not something I had seen anywhere else, right? Mm-hmm. So, and the work was so good, so deep, so small. And as a Pilates lover, I felt like Joseph Pilates created Pilates and Lotte Berk created her work. And I really feel like she was like a female version of Joseph Pilates because the work is so similar. It's all based on the pelvic tilt. Yeah. But the way that she figured out how to move your body is very different. Like the positions are very different than Pilates. But her thing with the middle was pulling it in from the backside. I always like to say, if you're going to look at a sheet and like, how do you make a bed really tight? You got to go underneath. You got to get those. So that was her focus, is like, she found a way to get to the backside of her waist like no one else did. And you would pull it from the back, and then that smooths and tightens the front, And I think Joseph Pilates did a lot of his mentality was very similar. But for me personally, when I was a Pilates instructor, my abdominals were really strong and flat, but they were more square because I was like, you're pulled in and you're pulling it flat, but then it almost pushes the sides out because you're doing all this up and over work. But when you add the little whittling like that, you still get the pulled in flat, but you actually get the circumference of you starts to get smaller. And that's really what women, famous actresses in the 60s, we're flying to England to train with Lotte Berk because she was making everyone like actually smaller. Like they were actually, their hips were getting smaller, like things that we didn't even know were possible. She was having happen. And it was because of these exercises.
You just go down one size. You're like, I just want to get in that cute skirt. Or
well, that's what I loved. Like when I first,
that's what happens. Like it's just like a side. It's like a side thing with this.
Yeah, like when I first started coming here, she had literally like you had to get all your measurements because she knew right away. She's like, you're gonna change shape. And I'm like, what? Like I'm skinny. Like I need to build muscle. And she's like, you're going to change shape. Literally, I'm like, oh, okay. Now my hips look nice. Like I have a little bit of a curve to it, you know. So I'm like, you have it. Facts right there. Like, okay, this is what you came in with and this is what you're at now. And like the competitions that you have with
every time. It's like, it doesn't matter. It just happens to me. I do a quarterly challenge, and every single time, like I just did one in December and I pulled in 12 inches, even though I know. It's like, it's so crazy because if you do it every day and you stick with it and you do it. I mean, I do it a lot because I'm doing a challenge and so I'm in charge of every group and I'm doing it over that I usually do it. But even on my body, it happens even though I'm doing it all the time. It's like, it just pulls you in. Like Lotte Berk created a formula. We messed with the formula a little bit. And so it changed the work a little bit, but the results are, if you stick with like what she taught and you do it the way she taught, it's like, it happens to everyone. I don't care how small people are. They pull in smaller. I don't care how unfit people are. They pull in smaller. Like, it doesn't matter where you start. Like, you will pull in. It's like, if you commit, you have to like do it. That's the only thing is like, you have to do it.
How often do you have to do it? Like, what would you say for me, right? I've never done it before. I'm like, was an athlete. I'm pretty like active now. I feel pretty strong, you know?
It doesn't matter really because the work is like, we've had Olympic medalists come here that are so strong and they find it challenging. So it's
having a background of some sort of athleticism to like none, would you recommend someone to not feel discouraged either? Because obviously you get super sore. Would you be like, start off like once a week for a month and then add another day, or go in full force and do it like 3-4 times?
No, I would say start with twice a week. Like just do an hour class twice a week. So either in the studio, we have classes online, wherever you can get them, do 2 a week. And if you do 2 a week, that's all I had people do in the beginning. When I brought this back to America, I just put it out to my clients that I already had. And I said, listen, I did this technique and this is what happened to me. I want to see if it happened to you. And so I did 2 different test groups. I only had them do it twice a week. And they all lost 1 inch to 2 inches in their waist, plus all the thighs pulling in everything in 1 month of doing it twice a week. So,
wow. Everyone.
I did it 1 test group and then I was like, this is so crazy. Then I did another test group and the same exact thing happened. It's like, but those people came twice. Like it was at my house. I'm like, you can't miss. This is like, I'm doing this to test
I need to know.
Yeah. And it was so great. And that's really why it blew up like it did, was because people would go out to barbecues because it was summertime and they'd be like, what are you doing? And the girls were all like, I'm going to this woman's house. She's calling it the London method. And this is what's happening to me. And they're like, well, I want to go. It's like, I didn't even do any advertising. It was just the people going out and their friends seeing what was happening to their friends and being like, what is that? And it's so crazy. It is like across the board. It happens. You have to do it right though. That's the whole thing, is like, you have to like, that's why just practicing it, because it's like anything, you have to like, the moves are detailed and intricate, but when you get them right, you can feel like you felt today. You're like, well, what is happening? You know?
Yeah. So is every class the same thing, or are classes different? Are they different levels?
Yeah.
Or do you kind of do the same exercises every class?
So that's a great question. We've played with it a little bit because it's been, we've found this in 2015. So we have the original class is always going to be, you start with the warm up, you end with a cool down, and we have each section out of what you do, but you do different exercises. So the teacher gets to pick which exercises you do for each section, but every section, you're always going to start with top of the thigh. You're going to end with what we call tummy time. That's on your stomach. Like you always do the same, but you're going to do different exercises in that hour, right?
Yeah.
Then we have like a quickie version that I started where it's only 45 minutes. So in that class, we do 10 minutes of leg work, 10 minutes of backside work, and 10 minutes of abdominal work. And I'm even playing with that now this year where I want to add a little bit of arms to that. So for me, I'm a creative. So like, I know her formula. I know Lotte Berk's formula. I know what works. I know you have to have the side body work. I know you have to have like these certain things in to pull in. So I do play with it a little bit just because I like to keep people on their toes and to change the format of it. But the parts we hit, no matter what class you take, are always going to be the same, no matter like what teacher you take.
Okay, that makes sense, because I think there's some like studios that do different types of workouts, and they're always like changing, or that certain instructors do the same thing, and then if you can't go into a class, you pretty much know like the method that you should be doing at home when you're traveling, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. And we have studio, which I love studio like in person because I just feel like it's so great to be with people. But we have like online classes where we're teaching people. And then I started an Instagram for all our clients. It's a private Instagram. So if they're traveling or if they're not able to come to the studio because whatever reason, I have an Instagram for all of our clients, or as long as they're a client of our studio or a client of our online program, they all have access to this Instagram where I'm always just putting like 10-minute videos on there or a full class so that they can, and they're all categorized out so that people can get it whenever, because that's the whole thing with it is, I always tell people like, if you do Pilates or you run or you do whatever you do is great. But if you add this like twice a week as sort of your conditioning class, it'll make everything else you do so much better. You'll be like, why is my regular workout that I've done for years all of a sudden feeling easier because this?
Yeah, it's true about your core. Like I know my dad would always tell us, because he worked out a lot and was like very like precise and specific about what like parts of his body and stuff. And he's like, it's your core. You have to keep your core strong because that lessens your back. Like pains and weakness. And I know that this is like the weirdest thing that I do, but one of the weirdest things. So I've never really had a stomach. Like I've never had it because I always have my core like engaged.
Yeah.
When I'm walking, whatever I'm doing, I always have it engaged. And so if I try to stick my stomach out, I can't. It's so hard. So people can pretend they're like pregnant.
Yeah.
This is it. I can't because I'm always engaging it. But if you told me to do like 50 or 100 sit-ups, I'd probably die after 10.
Yeah. So you just walk around with tight abs all day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just keep my core tight.
That probably helps with your posture.
Maybe.
Because I walk around like this. I'm like, hey, Cal, hey, Mel.
But if I was able to really relax my stomach, I probably like have a stomach, but I just try not to.
Yeah.
It is true once you're used to doing this work. I know from my Pilates background, I'm always like pulled in just naturally. Like it feels weird for me. Like if I go to the yoga classes where they're like, push your belly out, I'm like, what? But
you're like pushing your body. You can't push like your stomach.
But it is really good though, I have to say, from like where I was at, like when I was a Pilates instructor to where I'm at today after like studying with Esther and doing the original Lotte Berk. It's like, there's a lot of relaxing in the work. Like a lot of times our leg is relaxed and then you lift. Like I think there's something to be said about not tensing all the time, because we need, like, even when we do pelvic floor work in class, like when we have you pull your pelvic floor in, we work your pelvic floor actually without anything else, like we just go straight for the pelvic floor. But what I learned from my years is that you have to be able to release all those muscles just as much as you have to pull them in, because especially like for back to babies talking, like if you want to get that baby out of you, you got to know how to push it out and to pull it in. So we're so obsessed with like pull in, but you also need to let your muscles go out, because they got to work both ways.
Right.
Like our muscles need to relax. We need to sleep. We need to work, but we have to have a balance in that. So I think that that's what's in this work is it's relaxing when you're working. You're stretching one side as you're tensing one another, and then you switch. Like it's all so beautifully balanced the way it's designed, and then you don't even really know what's happening to you. Like you're probably hearing me say this and be like, oh yeah, now that she's saying that, like I do feel that in class. But that's the genius of it to me, is that all that was lost. Like when it got brought to America, I was like, where's the stretching one side while you're working one side? Where's the relaxing? There's no relaxing. We're American. We're like, go. Like, don't relax. Like, that's how we are. But this work is not like that. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, we get a second. And then there's even, there's relaxing moments within this tense work where, relax. You're like, don't tense it, because that's just kind of how we're wired.
Yeah.
So it really changed how I thought about exercising once I I've been studying this exact technique since I met Esther in 2015. I would go back to England sometimes, I don't think I ever went 3 times a year, but the pandemic obviously changed that. But I would just continuously go back, because every time I went, I would learn more from this little guru.
Is she still alive?
Yes. In fact, we do retreats over there, and we're doing our first conference where she's going to be speaking at it, and it's to bring all the Lotte Berk people together, because my personal mission now, knowing Esther, I talk to her every Sunday. We have a phone call, and she's become so close to me. And my mission is not only to obviously help people with it, but is to have a space where the legacy can live on. So it's become a legacy thing for me. It's okay, I want there to be a space in the world where your mom's work can be found, because you dedicated your entire life to teaching her work. And she was just happy as a little clam out in the countryside of England and wasn't focused on that part. But I thought, giving that place, giving the work a space where now people know where they can find it.
So is the London method the name of your studio only, or is that what other studios that teach this method called? Is that what it's called in London or here?
So that's a great question. So Esther just teaches the Lotte Berk, the work of Lotte Berk out in her countryside to her ladies. She's not 87 now, and since the pandemic she teaches one small group now, but she doesn't really teach classes. When I found her and realized that nothing like this existed in America, I said, I want to take it here. And she said, well, all I want is my mom's legacy to live on. So just take the exercises and use them in whatever way you want. So I trademarked and named the London method based on her work, but that's my way of saying here's a space, a safe place for it to live, And right now Esther, she's a partner on we have an on-demand program where she teaches me. Actually, she teaches me in that program. We also have our teachers teach on there, and there's all sorts of different ways to access the original. But she's actually a part of that business. But for the main part, she's just freelance. She does her own thing, and then the London method is just my way of paying homage to her and her mom, to say when you're not here anymore, you can know that this will live in a place that's organized, and it's a business, but it's based off her work, her version of her mom's work, really, which didn't exist in the world.
So if someone obviously can't come to Southern California and they can do Instagram or online kind of classes, but they do want to have an in-person studio experience, are there other studios you just search Lotte Berk and then you can find that method of Barre, or?
Yeah. So no, that's the thing. So the London method, what we're becoming now, and since the pandemic now, we do teacher training. So we teach other instructors that want to learn the original work. We teach them the original class, and then once they're trained by us, and it's kind of an extensive thing, because they go through their training and then they have to submit their class, then we approve it. And once they're approved, they're able to teach the exercises in its original format if they'd like, or they're allowed to take the exercises and just maybe add them to whatever their modality they're doing. But they have the exercises. So yeah, the London method, think of it as a school where if you were going to go to, if you're going to learn to cook a certain cuisine, you would go to a chef and they would teach you. And then you're able to open your own restaurant with your own name. Right. And it's just like that. The chef you learn from is not going to come after you and say, hey, you can't do that. We want the exercises to be out there, and we want them to be out in their own way. So there won't be anyone opening a London method, but there will be teachers that were trained in the London method that are now able to take the exercises and teach them in their own way and do their own thing with it. Yeah, so that's the model that we want to put it out there with.
Yeah, so you want it just to be more consistent and people actually doing it more original to the Lotte Berk.
Lotte Berk. Like, we want you to know exactly what she was about, how to do her exercises, and then you're able to take them and share them with the world in your way. So
I love it.
Yeah, that's because that's what she, like, everything we do is what did she want, and we know that because we're attached to the daughter. Like, she tells us what her mom wanted, you know?
Do you know why she did the pelvic floor? Why did she bring that?
So Lotte,
I'm like that.
You want to get into Lotte. Like, she definitely, her and her husband, if you had an open marriage, pretty much, she I think if we were to, like, look at her in today's world where everyone's diagnosed with something, she definitely would have been like a sex addict for sure. Lotte Berk. Which is funny because she's so, like, proper and so sweet, and her mom was just like saying the F word.
Esther was sweet, but doesn't she have like a whip too?
Yes, she has a whip. We have one over there too. We pull out in our studio classes. Yeah, it's a crop actually, but it's a crop, but it's part of the technique too during the abdominal section is that the teacher walks around with a crop and makes sure that, and it is true when you have it in your hand, like, the whole class is like, they're just like, yeah, what is that? Even though we've never actually, used it on anyone. But yeah, she was a total sex addict, I'm pretty sure. She just had sex with different men all the time, was always talking about it. She was married to Esther's father for 30 years, but they just had like an open, he loved her so much that he would just let her do whatever. She, like, lived with a painter for a couple of years, and would just come home
Well, I just thought it was strange to come into I've never done dancing or been to, I've done barre, but going into a studio and then we're sitting on the floor and they're like, okay, pelvic work. And I'm like,
yeah,
excuse me?
She was really about, like, keeping everything nice and tight. Yes, for her own personal reasons, she wanted to keep it tight. But she was also, I feel like the way that Lotte thought about the body was very intuitive. Like, she wanted things to work properly. And she figured out how to do that through exercise. So in today's world, we'd be like, it's more like, it's really, your pelvic floors are so important for so many ways. But hers was like, I want to look good, I want to feel good, and that makes me tight and pulled in. So she did do the pelvic floor work, which was way ahead of her time, and so we sit in a circle in our classes and we have everyone do their pelvic floor work without working your abdominals at the same time. We actually just sit down and do pelvic floor.
Is that like Kegels?
It's Kegels, basically, yeah.
You're pretending like your innards are like a elevator. You close them up, bring them up your body, let it go. It's fabulous. Has anyone been uncomfortable with doing? Because I was a little like, okay, but we close our eyes. So I'm like looking around. I'm like, what are they gonna do? But now I'm like I probably am like humping the floor because I'm like trying to be as tight as possible. But it's true though. You want to keep it in.
It's so true. Yeah. I mean, at first it's funny because when we teach that especially in our trainings, we teach the teachers and they're like, wait, what? We have to do what? And we've had teachers that will teach in person and you can like just listen. If you're comfortable with it, then they're comfortable. You'll ease their discomfort because sometimes people are like, wait, we're going to do what? And we make them all sit in a circle
normal,
and face each other too. Like, we all sit in a circle and we do tell you can close your eyes. But that, as a Pilates instructor too, finding Esther doing that, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so Esther, I'll tell you a little secret about Esther because this is her little thing that she does. So she has you all sit in a circle and she does the pelvic floor work, and then she goes and have you go up, 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 all the way up, up, up until it's in your brain, until you are peaking. And she does this little thing with her arms. And like the first time I went to England, the first time I took class with her, I was like this American girl who was like, I was just didn't understand all the stuff that was happening over there. And I was like, wait, what did she do? And the girls were like, oh, she does that every class. Every class. Yeah, every class. She'll do it every time. And it's just so true. Like, I've now, of course, taken class with her for years and years. And every time she would do that, now you are peaking. You are peaking. So it's like a little joke we do in our studio. will sometimes share people like, that's what Esther does. We don't do that here, but like you can just know that that's what she does.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah.
I know, me too.
There's nothing taboo. In fact, in classes, when we come back, like one teacher's coming in and a class is going out, the girls will be like, oh, you don't even want to know what we talked about today. Like it just gets so crazy, the things that come up, because you are allowed to talk in class, which is kind of a rare thing. A lot of fitness studios, especially in America, it's like everyone's really quiet. You can't talk, but they are allowed to talk in England. That was one of the things, the biggest difference. I was like, wait, why are the people talking? She's like, how can you put that many women in a room together and ask them not to talk to each other?
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
I don't know, but we do that all the time. That's like the way we do it. So that whole thing has really, I think the people in the classes are so bonded too. Like, you make them sit in a circle, do their pelvic floor. They start talking about anything. So the women and now men too, because we had our first guy go through our training, so it's pretty exciting because guys have always been asking about it. And so
do men do a pelvic floor? Because I've been in a class with there was a man in here, and I was like, how is he different? So more about yourself, And I was like, is he gonna?
Men have so the pelvic floor is the same on all of us. We just have different stuff on top of it. So
they still have the muscle to pull in. They're still doing. I mean, I watched them do it. I was like,
yes. You're like, I open
my eyes. I'm closing my
eyes until there's a guy in class, then I'm opening them.
You're like,
everyone knows I like to watch. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, they just have different. We have different stuff on top. That's it. But we all have the same pelvic floor. Those muscles pull in and up. And so, the sensation is the same. It's just different. So you just talk about what the muscles are doing, like, from sit bone to sit bone, we have them pull in. So it's the same. It's like visualized.
Yeah. So, do you mind, as our last exercise, can we finish with pelvic floors?
Let's do pelvic floors. Yes.
You ready, Melanie?
I had a feeling you were going to make her do that.
I won't do the peeking. We've already peeked. So just cross your ankles like this.
Okay.
And I promise I won't look at you. I'll close my eyes like I'm supposed to.
So
I sometimes have to watch someone doing it.
Okay, you can keep your eyes open.
Okay, just so you know, you can't see people doing it. And this is the one thing I always say in class. I'm like, this is the one part in class where I'm not coming around to check to make sure you're doing it right. So you're gonna have to just listen. So you can just rest your hands wherever is comfortable. You relax your shoulders, and then you're gonna feel your two sit bones. So you feel your two sit bones on the floor there, and then all the muscles that are in between your sit bones, you're just gonna feel like they're drawing in towards one another. So you're gonna feel that little. It's really closing, but it can feel like it's lifting, and then you can just relax down. And then let's just turn it a little bit. So now you're going to go pubic bone to tail. Okay. So just pubic to tail. And again, just pull all those muscles in between your pubic bone, your tailbone, pull them in and feel them like they're lifting up inside. And then you're going to relax all the way down. So now we'll go for all four corners. Okay. So sit bone to sit bone, pubic to tail. So just try and relax everything else. And then you're going to pull all those muscles in from all four corners, pull in. And then let's just try and lift it up. So feel them lifting up, up, up. And then remember.
I'm peeking.
Exactly. But then you just want to relax and pull up. So remember we talked about the muscles. You want to make sure they're relaxing and not just always pulling in. Because it's really important to relax those muscles and then pull them in. Almost, you know what I like to imagine? You know those things at the fair where you hit it and it goes up? Like, you know, the thing that you're trying to get up as high as you can, but then it's got to come down and then it goes back up. Yeah, so you're trying to pull it up and then you relax it down. If it's got to come back down, then you pull up. What goes up must come down, right? So just going up and
feel
down.
it?
Uh-huh.
And then those muscles will get stronger going both ways, which is great. You want everything to be able to work in both directions.
And anyone could do that at home too.
Right.
Like working on your pelvic muscles.
Ladies are like, I do those at my desk now. I'm always working on my pelvic
Honestly,
floor.
I've done it in the car.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Because I work on road rage and I've worked on pelvic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
have you had a session on road rage yet? That'd be a good one.
I probably talked about it a few times.
Pet peeves, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing the London
gosh.
method with us.
Yes,
I do personally love it. It's one of my favorite workouts. So
we love having you. It's the best. And thank you for trying it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm definitely going to come for a full class for sure. Yeah. And for anyone that isn't in Southern California in Long Beach and can't come to the studio, then going online, right?
Yeah. So we'll give all of your people, if they want to try a week, we'll give them a week. So all they would have to do is go on to the London Method website, and we'll give them the code will be butts and guts.
Perfect.
And then they can get a free week. So
perfect. Wow.
that will be their password, and just use I love caps. So just use all caps, butts and guts.
Butts and guts.
And spell out butts and guts, and then sign up for a week trial, and we'll let that be for a week in studio or a week online. In case there's local people and they want to come inside, or they can come online just to try 7 days and just see if they like it. So
perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yay. And don't follow us. Don't tell your friends.
Don't subscribe.
that's so funny.